Chapter 1. The Judgment of the Elders. In the sprawling metropolis of Viralon Prime, where glass spires stretched beyond the reach of the violet-hued atmosphere, the Thrillian civilization thrived in a complex symphony of tradition, power, and relentless progression. The city hummed with the pulse of advanced technology. Hovercars zipped between floating highways, holographic billboards painted the sky with swirling light, and the very air shimmered with the faint energy of countless generators. Yet, amid this futuristic grandeur, the ancient values of the Thrillian people remained etched into every facet of their society, particularly their reverence for life and lineage. To be a female in the Thrillian race was to be the bearer of the future, entrusted with the sacred gift of motherhood, a role so exalted that it transcended mere biology and entered the realm of divine purpose. Kalira stood alone on the balcony of her family's ancestral home, her towering figure silhouetted against the sprawling cityscape. Her skin, a deep cerulean interlaced with iridescent patterns that shimmered faintly in the ambient light, told tales of strength and resilience, traits inherited from generations of proud ancestors. At nearly 8 feet tall and broad-shouldered, Kalira was larger than most of her kin, her presence commanding respect, yet also inviting whispers. The size that made her formidable in battle and respected in council was, paradoxically, the very reason she faced an impending fate that threatened to shatter her identity. The elders had decreed that her body was too large, too unwieldy, to carry a child to term safely. Such a judgment was not delivered lightly. It was a sentence that carried the weight of exile from the most cherished role a Thrillian woman could claim. As Kalira watched the evening sky darken into a swirl of stars, her thoughts raced through the memories of her childhood, when she had first dreamed of motherhood. From a young age, she had trained with the others, mastering combat, diplomacy, and the intricate arts of Thrillian heritage. Yet, even as she excelled in every domain, she felt an ache in her soul, the desire to nurture, to bring new life into the world, to fulfill the destiny bestowed upon every female in her race. The elders' verdict had crushed that hope, branding her as an anomaly, a living contradiction to their rigid traditions. Whispers followed her everywhere, voices filled with pity, curiosity, and sometimes disdain. Too large, too strong, incapable, they said. She can fight, but she cannot mother. But Kalira refused to accept that her worth was limited by ancient dogma. She sought answers beyond the cold halls of the council chambers and the dismissive murmurs of her peers. There had to be another way, a path that could restore not only her dignity, but her very future. It was then that a rumor reached her ears, carried on the winds of interstellar trade, and whispered among the less orthodox. A human from Earth, a species long regarded with skepticism and fascination, had arrived in the outer colonies with knowledge that defied the known laws of biology and medicine. This human, it was said, possessed technology and understanding that could heal wounds thought incurable and challenge the rigid boundaries of physiology. Kalira's curiosity ignited like a spark in dry grass. Against the advice of her closest confidants and the heavy hand of tradition, she resolved to seek this human out. She would journey to the fringes of the galaxy, beyond the familiar worlds of the Thrillian Confederation, to find the one who might offer her what the elders denied, the gift of motherhood. The journey was perilous, cutting through sectors fraught with piracy, political strife, and the cold vacuum of uncharted space. But Kalira's determination was unwavering. Each star she passed was a beacon of hope, each light year a step away from judgment and toward possibility. When she finally arrived on the small, rugged planet of Eden 9, a place known more for its verdant jungles and wild, untamed beauty than for any civilized presence, Kalira found herself in a humble settlement far removed from the polished halls of her home world. There, in a modest workshop cluttered with strange tools and holographic schematics, she met the human, Elias Mercer, a man whose reputation as a genius engineer and biotechnologist had spread quietly but rapidly through the galactic underground. His appearance was unassuming, a lean figure with keen eyes that held the kind of understanding that only comes from years of confronting the impossible. To Kalira, he was a stark contrast to the elders' cold certainty, a reminder that true strength often lay not in size or tradition, but in vision and compassion. Their first meeting was charged with tension and unspoken challenges. Kalira's pride warred with the vulnerability she barely admitted to herself. Elias, sensing the depth of her pain and the fire of her resolve, listened carefully as she laid bare her story, the rejection, the hopes, the desperate search for a solution beyond the limits of Thrillian science. It was a moment of mutual recognition, where two worlds collided and found a fragile bridge of trust. Elias explained that human technology had advanced in areas the Thrillians had long neglected: gene therapy, artificial wombs, and cellular regeneration. He proposed an experimental treatment, one that would enhance Kalira's biological capacity, reinforcing and adapting her physiology to support gestation despite her size. The process was unprecedented, untested on beings of her scale and complexity, but the potential was undeniable. For the first time in years, a flicker of hope rekindled in Kalira's heart. She agreed to the procedure, knowing that the path ahead was uncertain and fraught with risk, yet determined to reclaim the future that had been denied to her. As the weeks unfolded, the treatment began to take effect. Kalira's body adapted in ways that confounded even Elias, who monitored every change with a mixture of scientific curiosity and growing respect. Her strength remained undiminished, but beneath the surface, subtle shifts occurred, cellular structures realigned, metabolic pathways rewired, and an inner harmony emerged that whispered of new life. Yet, the greatest challenge was not physical but emotional. The fear of failure, the shadow of the Elder's condemnation, and the pressure of carrying a legacy for her people weighed heavily on her spirit. But Kalira found solace in the unexpected companionship that blossomed between her and Elias. In the quiet moments of recovery, their conversations ranged from the scientific to the philosophical, weaving a tapestry of trust and understanding. Elias shared stories of Earth's struggles and triumphs, of human resilience and compassion, while Kalira revealed the deep traditions and sacred rites that shaped her identity. Together, they forged a bond that transcended species and culture, grounded in the shared desire to defy destiny and embrace possibility. One evening, as the twin moons of Eden 9 rose over the jungle canopy, Kalira felt the first undeniable stirrings within her, a faint pulse of life, fragile yet fierce, growing stronger with each passing day. Tears blurred her vision as she whispered a silent vow to protect this gift, to honor the sacrifices made and the hope rekindled. In that moment, she knew that the journey was far from over, but the impossible was no longer beyond reach. The Elder's judgment was but a shadow eclipsed by the light of a human's gift, the gift of motherhood reborn. Days turned into weeks as Kalira remained at Elias's workshop, a place where the hum of machinery blended with the quiet rhythm of hope. The experimental therapy was unlike anything the galaxy had seen, a fusion of human genetic engineering and alien physiology that pushed the boundaries of science and faith alike. Elias worked tirelessly, calibrating nanobots that coursed through her bloodstream, rewriting cellular codes, and nurturing her body with biochemicals designed to strengthen and adapt. Each adjustment was a delicate balance, for Kalira was not merely a patient. She was a symbol of defiance against the rigid laws of her people and the limitations they had imposed. Her large frame, once seen as a barrier, began to transform subtly. The nanobots repaired microscopic tissue damage caused by her body's rejection of natural gestation and stimulated the growth of new, more resilient uterine structures. These structures were engineered to expand and contract with ease, perfectly suited for her unique anatomy. But it was not just physical change within her. A transformation of spirit began as well. Kalira's dreams grew vivid and profound. She felt an inexplicable connection to a nascent life that seemed to call to her from the depths of her renewed being. Every pulse, every flicker of energy within her was a promise that she could defy the Elder's condemnation and become a mother, no matter what her size or her past. Yet, despite these advancements, the weight of doubt lingered. The Thrillian Elder's decree echoed in her mind like a relentless storm. What if her body failed in the final moments? What if the clan rejected her entirely? The fear of abandonment and disgrace gnawed at her resolve. But Elias stood by her side, a steadfast guardian whose quiet confidence became a shield against despair. He reminded her that the future was forged by those willing to challenge fate, to endure pain and uncertainty in pursuit of hope. Their bond deepened beyond the professional as Kalira opened herself to the possibility of trust and even affection. Elias's steady presence, his gentle words, and his unyielding belief in her potential rekindled a flame she thought had long been extinguished. They shared nights under the alien stars, talking not just of science but of dreams, fears, and the fragile beauty of life itself. In those moments, Kalira felt not the weight of her size or the judgment of her people, but the tender promise of a new beginning. Then came the moment she had longed for but feared, the first undeniable sign that her body was nurturing life. A faint glow beneath her skin, a rhythmic pulse in her core that no machine could fabricate, no therapy could mimic. She was pregnant. The news should have been a triumph, yet it was met with a complicated torrent of emotion. Awe, relief, joy, but also apprehension and the looming shadow of what awaited her back home. Kalira knew that news of her pregnancy would shatter conventions and ignite fierce controversy. Many would see her condition as an affront to tradition, a threat to the purity of their lineage. But she also knew that she carried not only a child but the potential to redefine what it meant to be a Thrillian woman. The journey back to Viralon Prime would be the greatest trial yet, a battle between progress and prejudice, love and fear. Chapter 2. Return to Viralon Prime. The journey home was a crucible of conflicting emotions, as Kalira traveled aboard a sleek starship piloted by Elias himself. The vastness of space, once a canvas for hope, now felt heavy with the weight of impending judgment. Viralon Prime approached through the viewport, its sprawling neon veins pulsing with the life of a civilization both ancient and unyielding. Kalira stared at the planet's horizon, her thoughts a storm of anticipation and dread. What would the elders say when they learned she was carrying life within her massive frame? Would they accept this miracle wrought by human hands, or condemn her further as an abomination? The reception upon their arrival was icy and severe. The Council of Elders, robed in ceremonial fabrics that shimmered with the energy of their station, regarded Kalira's condition with a mixture of disbelief and scorn. Their voices, usually steady with authority, cracked with shock as she revealed the truth, that against every expectation, she was pregnant, thanks to the intervention of a human, a species they both feared and disdained. The elders demanded proof, skepticism thick in their tone, while the gathered crowd of Thrillians whispered in shock and confusion. Some saw a sign of hope and evolution, others a threat to their sacred traditions. Kalira stood tall, her immense frame casting a shadow that seemed to swallow the doubts and sneers. She told her story, of exile, of hope found in the unlikeliest of allies, of a bond forged not just in science, but in trust and compassion. Elias spoke too, presenting the scientific data and medical evidence that corroborated her claims. The starship's diagnostic logs, the nanobot scans, and the progression of Kalira's pregnancy were undeniable. Slowly, a murmur of awe began to ripple through the hall. But tradition is a stubborn force. The elders decreed that the pregnancy would be closely monitored, that Kalira would bear her child in the sanctum of the old birthing temple, surrounded by the highest priests and doctors sworn to ensure the safety of the unborn. Many doubted her survival. Fewer believed the child would live. The pressure on Kalira was immense. She was no longer just a woman fighting for herself, but a symbol on whom the future of the entire race might hinge. As preparations for the sacred birth commenced, Kalira felt a fierce resolve harden within her. This child was not just a defiance of biology or tradition, but a beacon of possibility. Whatever the outcome, she would fight with every fiber of her being, for herself, for her child, and for every Thrillian who had ever been told they were too much, too different, too large to matter. The city outside bustled on, unaware or uncaring of the quiet revolution unfolding within its heart. But Kalira knew, history would remember this moment, one way or another. The halls of the birthing temple were ancient and imposing, carved from luminescent stone mined from deep within Viralon Prime's core. The air inside hummed with centuries of prayers, chants, and rituals that had welcomed new life into the Thrillian world since time immemorial. Here, Under the watchful eyes of the high priestesses and the medical council, Kalira prepared for the ordeal ahead. The atmosphere was thick with tension, a fragile mix of hope and skepticism that pressed down upon her like a physical weight. Kalira's massive form lay on the sacred birthing dais, surrounded by alien healers clad in ceremonial garb that contrasted sharply with the sterile precision of Elias's human instruments. The juxtaposition of ancient ritual and cutting-edge technology was emblematic of the entire ordeal, a collision between two worlds, two philosophies, struggling to find harmony. The elders were present, their stoic faces betraying nothing, but the sharp glances exchanged between them spoke volumes of their doubts and fears. Every day was a test of endurance. Kalira's body, though strengthened by Elias's treatment, struggled against the immense physical demands of carrying a child deemed impossible for one of her size. Pain surged through her in waves, a relentless reminder of the delicate balance between life and death. Yet, with each contraction, she felt a fierce determination ignite inside her, a defiance born not only of personal desire, but of the larger battle she was waging for the acceptance of change within her people. The people of Viralon Prime watched from afar, their opinions divided. The news of Kalira's pregnancy had spread rapidly, fueling debate and discourse among the citizenry. Some hailed it as a miracle, a sign that their civilization was evolving beyond its archaic limitations. Others whispered warnings, fearing that such a departure from tradition would unravel the very fabric of their society. Kalira became a symbol, for some, a beacon of hope, for others, a threat to the order they cherished. Amid the struggle, Elias remained her steadfast anchor. He was there through sleepless nights, monitoring vital signs and recalibrating treatments, his calm voice cutting through the cacophony of doubts. More than a scientist, he became a companion, offering solace and strength when the physical and emotional trials seemed unbearable. Their bond deepened, transcending cultural divides, forged in the crucible of shared purpose and unspoken understanding. One pivotal night, when the twin moons cast an ethereal glow through the temple's stained glass, Kalira faced the most harrowing moment of her journey. A complication arose. The child's growth strained her body beyond the limits of even the advanced therapy. The elders convened in urgent council, debating the risks of continuing the pregnancy versus the ancient protocols that prioritized the mother's survival over all else. To them, the choice was clear. To save Kalira, the child must be sacrificed. But Kalira's resolve was unyielding. She refused to submit to the cold calculus of tradition. With Elias's support, she demanded every possible measure be taken to preserve both lives. The debate escalated into a fierce battle of wills, pitting centuries of doctrine against the evolving reality of what was possible. It was a watershed moment, exposing the fault lines within Thrillian society and forcing even the most conservative voices to confront the potential for change. The temple's healers rallied, combining ancestral wisdom with human innovation to stabilize Kalira's condition. Advanced biotic stabilizers, nanotech-infused healing protocols, and carefully monitored energy fields were deployed in an unprecedented fusion of medicine and mysticism. The process was painstaking, the hours stretching into an eternity of hope and fear. When dawn finally broke, the crisis had passed. Kalira was weakened but alive, and the child within her continued to grow strong. The victory was bittersweet, a reminder of the fragile balance between life and death, tradition and progress. Yet, it also marked a turning point, a moment when the impossible had been made possible, and the future of the Thrillian race opened to new possibilities. As Kalira lay recovering, she felt the stirrings of life within her anew, a rhythmic heartbeat that resonated with the promise of tomorrow. The elders, though still cautious, began to soften in their stance, their gazes less harsh, their words tinged with reluctant respect. The people, too, started to shift, whispers of acceptance, of hope, threading through the city like a gentle breeze. Kalira knew the journey was far from over. The final act awaited, the birth that would either cement her place in history or shatter everything she had fought for. But in that moment, surrounded by the mingling scents of ancient incense and sterile technology, she found strength in the knowledge that she was no longer alone. Humanity, with all its flaws and brilliance, had given her the gift of motherhood, and with it, the power to reshape destiny itself. The days that followed were a slow unraveling of barriers, both physical and societal. Kalira's pregnancy progressed, each movement of the child a testament to the impossible becoming reality. The city's pulse seemed to quicken with every heartbeat she carried within, her story spreading beyond the temple walls to every corner of Viralon Prime. What once had been whispered as scandalous heresy now sparked conversations in markets, homes, and holoscreens alike. The narrative was shifting, the people's hearts stirred with a growing sense of wonder and possibility. Yet, not all embraced this change with open arms. The most conservative factions within the Council of Elders remained staunchly opposed, their fear of upheaval transforming into outright hostility. Secret meetings plotted to discredit Kalira and her human ally, branding their alliance a dangerous contamination of sacred lineage. Tensions rose, but Kalira's unwavering dignity and the undeniable progress of her condition forged an armor that no decree or malice could pierce. Amid this growing storm, Elias remained her most trusted companion and protector. He adapted to the customs of Kalira's world with a humility born of respect, learning the ancient rituals and supporting her through both medical trials and cultural challenges. Their bond deepened beyond that of patient and healer. It became a partnership forged in shared defiance against a universe that often resisted change. The night before the expected birth, Kalira found herself alone on the temple balcony once more, gazing out over the city bathed in the glow of countless stars. Elias joined her quietly, and together they looked beyond the horizon, not as outcasts, but as pioneers. "We've crossed a threshold," Elias said softly. "No matter what happens tomorrow, the world has changed because of you." Kalira nodded, feeling the child within respond with a gentle movement, a spark of life as vivid as the stars overhead. "I carry not just a child," she whispered. "I carry the hope of a new future." Chapter 3. Birth of a New Era. The birthing chamber was a sacred place, resplendent with the ancient symbols of the Thrillian matriarchs, yet now infused with the hum of human technology that Elias had helped integrate. As Kalira lay surrounded by healers from two worlds, the moment of birth was more than a biological event. It was a convergence of cultures, a challenge to the unyielding weight of tradition, and the genesis of something utterly unprecedented. Labor was grueling. Kalira's body, immense and powerful, endured a struggle that echoed the epic battles of her ancestors. Pain surged and receded like waves crashing against a steadfast shore. Throughout it all, Elias remained a calm presence, administering aid and offering words of encouragement that bridged the gulf between their species. The elders watched silently, their faces unreadable, their hearts caught between doubt and awe. Then, in a moment suspended between eternity and time's relentless flow, the cries of new life filled the chamber. A child unlike any before, a perfect blend of Thrillian strength and human adaptability. The child's cerulean skin shimmered faintly under the soft glow of the chamber's lights, the iridescent patterns a mirror of Kalira's own. It was a miracle that transcended biology, a symbol that shattered barriers and rewrote the possibilities of existence. The room held its breath as the elders, one by one, rose to acknowledge the child and the mother who had defied their decrees. The atmosphere was thick with emotion, awe, relief, reverence, and a dawning respect that none had expected to feel. Kalira, exhausted but radiant, cradled her child close, feeling a surge of love and triumph that filled every fiber of her being. News of the birth rippled swiftly through Viralon Prime and beyond. Kalira's journey, once a tale of rejection and despair, became a legend of courage, resilience, and transformation. The rigid structures of tradition began to bend, influenced by the undeniable proof that life could flourish in forms once deemed impossible. Amidst the celebration and newfound acceptance, Kalira and Elias looked toward the horizon, knowing that their story was only the beginning. Together, they had not only given birth to a child but to a new era, one where the bonds between species could forge bridges stronger than prejudice and fear. The days following the birth were unlike any Viralon Prime had ever witnessed. Kalira, once isolated by her people's prejudices, now stood at the center of a profound societal transformation. The child she held, named Lyra, meaning hope, in the ancient tongue, became a living symbol that challenged every assumption about lineage, biology, and destiny. Kalira's immense size, once deemed a curse, was now seen as the vessel for a miracle that could redefine what it meant to be Thrillian. The Council of Elders, their authority shaken but not yet broken, convened in closed chambers to debate the future. Some members, inspired by Kalira's courage and the undeniable success of the hybrid birth, advocated for reform and embrace of new scientific knowledge and cultural exchange. Others resisted fiercely, clinging to the old ways with desperation. These opposing forces created a fragile tension that permeated every aspect of Thrillian society. Outside the halls of power, the citizenry wrestled with their own conflicted feelings. Public forums and hollow communities buzzed with impassioned discussions. Parents questioned the rigid restrictions imposed on their daughters. Warriors debated the meaning of strength, and scholars celebrated the expansion of Thrillian understanding through human collaboration. Kalira's story inspired others who had been marginalized, those deemed too weak, too different, or too large to dream of acceptance and change. Throughout this upheaval, Kalira remained a steady beacon. She dedicated herself not only to raising Lyra, but to advocating for those whose voices had been silenced by tradition. Her relationship with Elias blossomed into a profound partnership rooted in mutual respect and shared vision. Together, they worked to bridge the gap between two species, blending ancient rites with pioneering science to create a new cultural tapestry. One of Kalira's first initiatives was the establishment of the Sanctuary of Renewal, a place where Thrillians and humans could learn from each other and support those navigating the complexities of hybrid identity and the shifting social landscape. This sanctuary became a refuge for many, a symbol that change was not only possible but inevitable. Lyra grew rapidly, her strength and intellect far surpassing expectations. She exhibited a unique blend of Thrillian resilience and human curiosity, embodying the potential of a united future. Watching her daughter thrive ignited in Kalira a fierce determination to dismantle every barrier that might threaten this new path. But even as hope flourished, challenges persisted. Hardline factions conspired to undermine Kalira's progress, spreading fear and propaganda aimed at reigniting ancient hostilities. Tensions flared in political arenas and on the streets, reminding everyone that transformation was never without sacrifice. In response, Kalira and Elias embarked on a diplomatic mission across neighboring systems, sharing their story and the lessons learned on Viralon Prime. Their journey was met with a mixture of skepticism and admiration, yet it gradually fostered alliances that transcended cultural divides. The ripple effects of their courage began to reshape the galaxy's perception of unity, diversity, and the power of compassion. Amidst these monumental shifts, Kalira often reflected on her own journey from rejection and exile to becoming a mother and a leader. The path had been fraught with pain, doubt, and struggle, but it had also revealed the boundless strength within herself and others. She understood that motherhood was not simply a biological gift. It was a catalyst for change, a source of hope that could inspire entire civilizations to evolve. As Lyra reached her first cycle of maturity, Kalira felt a profound sense of completion and new beginnings. Her daughter's impending rite of passage promised to be a defining moment not just for their family, but for the future of the Thrillian people. Together, they stood on the cusp of a new era, ready to face whatever trials awaited with courage, love, and an unbreakable bond forged across worlds. As Lyra's first cycle of maturity approached, the tension within Viralon Prime and beyond reached a crescendo. The sacred rites that marked a Thrillian's passage into adulthood were steeped in tradition, and for Lyra, a child born of defiance and hope, the ceremony would be both a personal milestone and a powerful test of societal acceptance. Kalira, while proud of her daughter's burgeoning strength and spirit, could not ignore the growing shadows cast by those who opposed change. Factions within the Elders and other influential figures whispered threats and schemes, unwilling to relinquish their grip on old power. Elias stood resolutely by Kalira's side, coordinating efforts to protect Lyra and support the fragile peace blossoming among the people. Their combined expertise and leadership forged a coalition of allies from diverse worlds and cultures, all united by the vision of a galaxy where differences were embraced rather than feared. Yet, beneath this alliance, the undercurrents of dissent churned, threatening to erupt into conflict that could undo everything they had fought for. The day of the right arrived under skies streaked with dawn's first light. The grand amphitheater of Viralon Prime overflowed with spectators, some filled with hope, others with guarded skepticism. Kalira's massive frame stood tall beside Elias as Lyra stepped forward, radiant and poised despite the weight of history resting on her young shoulders. The ceremony began with the chanting of ancient hymns and the lighting of the ceremonial flames, a powerful reminder of the Thrillian legacy. As Lyra completed each ritual, demonstrating her strength, wisdom, and compassion, the crowd's mood shifted. Murmurs of approval grew louder, the earlier apprehension giving way to a collective recognition of the child's undeniable greatness. The elders themselves, once so divided, found themselves moved by the undeniable truth. Lyra was not an aberration, but the embodiment of a future where tradition and progress could coexist. Yet, just as hope seemed certain, a sudden upheaval rocked the amphitheater. A faction of hardliners, refusing to accept the changing tide, attempted to disrupt the ceremony. Chaos erupted as security forces clashed with agitators, and Kalira, despite her exhaustion, moved swiftly to protect her daughter and those around her. In that crucible of conflict, the true strength of their alliance was revealed, a galaxy united not by fear, but by shared courage and the will to build a better tomorrow. When calm was restored, the ceremony concluded with the highest honors bestowed upon Lyra. She was declared a full member of the Thrillian people, a bridge between worlds, and a symbol of hope for generations to come. Kalira felt a profound surge of pride and relief, knowing that their journey had not been in vain. Chapter 4: A New Legacy. With Lyra's rite of passage marking the dawn of a new era, Kalira and Elias turned their attention to the future. The challenges of blending cultures, advancing technology, and healing old wounds were vast, but so too were the possibilities. The Sanctuary of Renewal flourished as a hub of innovation and understanding, attracting scholars, diplomats, and visionaries from across the galaxy. Kalira embraced her role as both mother and leader, advocating tirelessly for inclusion, equality, and the celebration of diversity. She traveled far and wide, sharing her story and inspiring others to challenge their own limitations. Elias continued his pioneering work, developing new medical techniques and fostering collaboration between species, his partnership with Kalira a testament to what could be achieved when empathy transcended boundaries. Lyra, growing into a wise and compassionate young leader, embodied the best of both her heritages. Her unique abilities and perspective made her a beacon for those who felt caught between worlds. Together, they worked to create a galaxy where no one was deemed too large, too different, or too other to belong. The legacy of Kalira's journey, from rejection and exile to motherhood and leadership, became a cornerstone of galactic history. It reminded all beings that true strength lay not in conformity, but in the courage to embrace change, the power of compassion, and the unbreakable bonds forged through understanding. As Kalira looked out once more upon the stars, now not as an outcast, but as a matriarch of a new age, she knew that the gift of motherhood was more than the life she had carried. It was the life she had helped create for countless others. The future was wide open, and for the first time, it was theirs to shape. Kalira's transformation from a figure of rejection to a beacon of hope was not merely personal, it rippled outward, reshaping the very fabric of the Thrillian Confederation and beyond. This sanctuary of renewal, born from her vision, evolved into a sprawling center where the best minds from countless species converged. Scientists, diplomats, artists, and philosophers gathered under one roof, united by the belief that diversity was strength and that the future demanded bold innovation grounded in empathy. Within the sanctuary's vast halls, Kalira found a new purpose beyond motherhood. She became a leader, a mentor, and an advocate for those who had been cast aside by rigid traditions. Her personal story, once whispered in doubt, was now recited in classrooms and broadcast across star systems, inspiring a generation to question the limits imposed by fear and prejudice. Kilira worked tirelessly alongside Elias, whose brilliance in biotechnology pushed the boundaries of what was possible, not just for Thrillians, but for countless species struggling with biological and social challenges. Together, they pioneered groundbreaking techniques to help others deemed imperfect or unfit by their own society's techniques that allowed for safe births, healed grievous injuries, and even bridged genetic gaps to create new hybrid beings capable of thriving in diverse environments. The galaxy watched with a mixture of awe and skepticism as Kilira's initiatives challenged centuries-old norms, shaking the foundations of many cultures and igniting passionate debates. Yet, Kilira remained grounded in the intimate moments of motherhood. Lyra's growth was extraordinary not just physically but spiritually and intellectually. The child carried the legacies of two worlds, embodying the resilience of the Thrillians and the adaptability of humanity. Kilira nurtured Lyra with fierce love, teaching her not only the ancient traditions, but also the importance of questioning and evolving them. Together, they represented the dawn of a new era, one where identity was fluid, where strength was found in unity, and where no one would ever be deemed too much or too little. But leadership came with sacrifice. Kilira faced relentless pressure from political factions resistant to change, from old alliances threatened by the new order, and from the deep internal conflict of balancing her role as a mother with that of a revolutionary. At times, the weight of expectation threatened to break her spirit, yet each time she found strength in the memory of the journey she had endured, the exile, the rejection, and the miraculous birth that had defied fate. Elias, too, grappled with his place in this vast transformation. Once a solitary engineer from a distant blue planet, he now stood as a vital partner in a movement that transcended species and systems. His quiet wisdom, tempered by humility and boundless curiosity, complemented Kilira's passion and resolve. Their partnership became legendary not just for what they achieved scientifically, but for the example they set in bridging divides through respect and love. As the years passed, Kilira's influence expanded beyond Viralon Prime. She became an envoy, traveling to distant colonies and council chambers, spreading a message of hope and inclusivity. Lyra, growing into a formidable young woman, often accompanied her, symbolizing the living proof of a future where boundaries blurred and collaboration thrived. The legacy they forged was not without opposition, but the tide had turned irreversibly. Societies that once rejected difference now sought to understand and embrace it. The galaxy began to heal wounds long inflicted by fear of the unknown. And in quiet moments, Kilira reflected on the gift she had received, not just the gift of motherhood, but the gift of becoming a catalyst for a brighter, more compassionate future. Looking out at the vast expanse of stars, Kilira felt a profound peace. She had been deemed too large to bear children, too different to belong. Yet through courage, science, and love, she had given birth to a new legacy, one that would shine across the cosmos for generations to come. Years had passed since the miraculous birth that had shaken the foundations of the Thrillian Confederation. Kilira, once cast aside and deemed too large to fulfill the sacred role of motherhood, had blossomed into a legend not just for her unparalleled strength or towering stature, but for the unyielding love and courage that had reshaped an entire civilization. The galaxy was changing. What began as a whispered hope in a remote jungle world had grown into a tidal wave of transformation sweeping through countless species and systems. The sanctuary of renewal had become a beacon for those seeking to redefine identity, biology, and tradition, blending ancient wisdom with cutting-edge technology and the enduring power of empathy. Kilira and Elias's work had saved lives, healed hearts, and opened doors previously sealed by fear and dogma. Lyra, now a wise and compassionate leader in her own right, stood proudly beside her mother. She embodied the unity of two worlds, her cerulean skin a shimmering tapestry of human and Thrillian heritage, her spirit a bright flame of resilience and hope. She had become a symbol of the future, a future where differences were celebrated, where strength came in many forms, and where the bonds of family transcended all boundaries. Kalira often reflected on her journey from exile and condemnation to motherhood and leadership. She remembered the cold judgment of the elders, the loneliness of rejection, and the spark of hope ignited by a human stranger who dared to believe in the impossible. That belief had carried her through pain and doubt, through battles both physical and ideological, until she stood not as an outcast, but as a matriarch of a new era. Her story had inspired countless others who had felt too large, too different, or too broken to be accepted. They found courage in her example and strength in the community she helped build. Kalira's gift was no longer just the child she bore, but the legacy she left. A galaxy awakened to the truth that life's greatest power lay not in conformity, but in the fearless embrace of diversity. In the twilight of her years, Kalira stood once more on a balcony overlooking the city of Viralon Prime. The stars above shone brightly, a constellation of infinite possibilities. Elias joined her, their hands entwined in quiet companionship. They had faced the impossible and emerged stronger, their love a testament to the boundless potential of unity. "Do you ever regret it?" Elias asked softly. Kalira smiled, the lines of age and wisdom etched gently across her face. "Never. Because I was given the greatest gift of all, not just motherhood, but the chance to change the stars themselves." Together, they looked out into the vast cosmos, knowing their journey had only just begun. The future was theirs to shape, a future where no one would ever be told they were too large, too different, or too much to matter. They had proven that with courage, compassion, and love, even the oldest traditions could be reborn into something beautiful and new. And so, beneath the endless sky of stars, Kalira's legacy shone brightest of all, a beacon of hope for every being who dared to dream beyond limits, to embrace the impossible, and to give the gift of life and love in all its magnificent forms.